9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the Last Minute Fantasy Scramble. I'm your host, Kevin McCartney. Alongside me today, we got Bobby Janis, we got John Viveros. We are ready to talk some waivers. Bobby, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. Another week. How about you guys?
I'm doing great. What about
I'm
you,
doing
John?
great. I'm doing great myself. Like I said, I had some roster gymnastics this week to win one of my money leagues, and it felt good to escape and find a way to win.
All right, John. I know it's your team, but it smells really bad. I could smell it from here, whatever's going on in New York, but why don't you break down the Jets from last night?
Oof, tough to say, man. Like the Jets. I feel like they're a pretty good first half team. You know what? I'll even give you they're a great 55-minute team. But that last 5 minutes was awfully played by them from a football
Great's
standpoint.
a very strong word.
Great last night. Great in a vacuum against that awful New England team that they played against. No, but like they're. I look like it almost looked like the take was on like at the end of the game. Regardless though, outside of in fantasy terms, got a solid game out of Joe Flacco. Only had 7 incompletions. He did have that really bad interception, which I blame more to play call than actually a bad throw than anything else. He played well though, 3 touchdowns, 262. Not a bad stat line. Was able to kind of to pick apart the that zero coverage that New England is known and famous for. Tough defense to figure out, but the offensive line protected him well. Receivers, Brashad Perriman, huge game, 101 and 2 on 7 targets. He dropped one earlier, but he definitely made up for it later in the game. Denzel Mims in his second game made up or looked very good as well, 4 for 62. Jamison Crowder got you a really nice highlight reel touchdown, but he wasn't too active. It seemed like that he was splitting time with Braxton Berrios. I think that was more just getting him back into like the game because he saw a lot more play in the second half than he did in the first half. Overall, though, I'm only rostering Jamison Crowder as the Jets go right now. Running backs, you can't roster Frank Gore or Michael Perrine. He's just not worth it. The Jets are going to be behind way too much. I'm not rostering Flacco. I'm not rostering Sam Darnold unless you're absolutely necessary. Unless you're in like a 15, 16 team league and there's only one quarterback left. Overall, though, I mean, it was an entertaining enough game. As a fan, it sucked because they did lose to Nick Folk at the end, but I enjoyed it.
As a Jets fan, though, don't you just want them to lose out at this point, or do you think they're just going to scare Trevor Lawrence away?
I think partially they're going to scare Trevor Lawrence away. We might have an Eli situation, unfortunately. But I'm not even sure if I really want Eli, or not Eli. Definitely don't want Eli. Not even sure if I want Trevor Lawrence at this point because the Jets have shown no proficiency in developing quarterbacks. We've gone through Mark Sanchez, Geno Smith, Bryce Perry, Christian Hackenberg, Ryan Fitzpatrick for that stopover, real quick. Who he played well for one season, not gonna lie. And then now Sam Darnold, Sam Darnold was one of the best quarterback prospects coming out of college, like in the last couple of years. Like Dan Orlovsky still swears by it that Sam Darnold is probably the most talented quarterback in the last 2 or 3 years. Like that's including
He might
Baker
be if
Mayfield.
he would have landed on any other team.
100%, I definitely agree. It's just like when you can put any star quarterback with no talent, no offensive line, and they're going to look terrible. Like, look at Peyton Manning in his first couple of years. Look at Drew Brees in their first couple of years. They weren't very good at all. Once they got that talent, once they got into a new system. So I think, unfortunately, the Jets might have already ruined Sam Darnold because he very well could be a very productive quarterback down the line when he gets into a better system, which definitely pains me because I love Sam Darnold. I loved him in college. I was super ecstatic when they signed him, when they traded up to sign him. So we'll see what happens. But, Bobby, I think you got some Patriots to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, that game actually, from a fan perspective, I will agree that wasn't as bad of a game as we thought. It was actually kind of entertaining. But as for the Patriots side of things, they're not that fantasy gold mine like they used to be in years past. They just really don't have a lot of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, you'll start with Cam Newton, who is definitely startable and rosterable in fantasy leagues. He did score 24 fantasy points. He had those 2 rushing touchdowns. He did throw for 274 yards, but I mean, if you watch that game, he just it just looks so painful for him to complete a pass. I mean, he's struggling doing that. I mean, his value in fantasy is rushing and inside the 5-yard line. I mean, he has almost 10 rushing touchdowns now, and this is his second game with 2+ rushing touchdowns, and that's where he's gonna get his value. But this is a run first team, and as for the running backs, Damian Harris led the game or led the team with 13 carries, but he left with an injury. Burkhead had an all right game. He got in the end zone, but then you got James White on passing downs. You got Sony Michel coming back. This is definitely a backfield to avoid. And John was talking about Jacoby Myers the last 2 weeks as a guy to keep out for, and he had him as his breakout player last week. And really, he was the guy. I mean, he's seeing all the targets. Edelman's might be out another week, so will be N'Keal Harry. The Patriots, when they do throw, they're going to have to throw somewhere. I mean, he had 12 catches for 169 yards. I mean, that's really eye-opening. And then the last week he had 6 for 58 and leading them in targets by far. So Myers is definitely worth a pickup. We'll start talking about him later moving forward. And then as for Cam Newton, you could start him if you want. He's a low-end starter or bye-week fill-in, but nothing to be super excited about there. I mean, they just don't have a lot of weapons, just a depleted roster.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Jacoby Myers, John, why don't you let us know how much you've been talking about him lately?
I mean, I've been talking about him for 2-3 weeks at this point. When N'Keal Harry went down, when Edelman went down, there was just no one else to throw the ball to, and he was the only. I don't want to say he was the only experienced wideout, but it just seems like he's the only one who that Cam actually had like a simple enough rapport with, and so like because I was just scrolling to the waiver wire, and then I was looking at the team, and I was like, okay, there's no Edelman, so there's got to be someone. There's no one underneath, so they have to stretch the field with someone. And he's the one that, like I said, he's the one that I found. He got a good bit of targets against San Francisco. He does a lot with the balls that are thrown to him. So he's good, gets a great target share, and he catches the ball, which is huge. So that's all you can expect. And Cam 100% likes him. He looks for him almost every play. You can see him look, and then it not pains him, but he does look away. And then he has to go somewhere else. But there was a point in the game where Cam had like 179 yards, and Jacoby Myers had 110 of it, or something ridiculous like that. So he is, at this point, with no Harry, no Edelman, the only option. And even going forward, he might be the only option for a little bit, because the only two active tight ends the Patriots have right now are two rookies. Tom Izzo, I believe the guy, or maybe not Tom Izzo. That's what it's Izzo and someone else. I don't know the names off the top of my head. So like he's like, outside of the running game, like he's their only option. So he's not rostered in any leagues. He's rostered in about 5% of leagues. So if you can get him, if you have high waiver prior and you need a receiver, you need to pick him up.
All right, I know we usually wait for questions for the end, but we got some early already on the Twitch stream. We have Amona Cheese asking, hope I got that name right, rest of season, Kyler Murray or Josh Allen? Bobby, what do you think?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's actually a really good one.
For me, it's not actually a good one. I think it's Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray is going to be the number one fantasy quarterback this year. He's going to finish because of his insane rushing ability. And I mean, he just that has so much value. He's going to be this year's Lamar Jackson. He might not break those records, but man, he just looks so incredible with that rushing upside in a high-scoring offense. They've scored over 30 points for 3 straight weeks now in Arizona. So I'm going to take Kyler Murray there.
Yeah, I love me some Josh Allen. Like, anybody who's listening to the show knows how big of a fan I am of him. Was big time going into this draft. But Kyler Murray, man, like, he's just something else this year. And yeah, he's just trending in the right direction. Even last week, against the Dolphins, put up over 100 yards and a rushing touchdown. He's probably, with that backfield that has Chase Edmonds and Kenyon Drake, he might be the best rusher out of the three of them at the quarterback position. But yeah, John, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's closer than Bobby would like to admit. But I definitely agree with him, though. Yeah, you have to go Kyler. He's too dominant at this point. Like it's like you said, specifically with that rushing ability. When you get a quarterback that can move as fast as he can, and then like he has that quick startup speed. He's so quick. He's so nimble on his feet. Like you can tell, like there's a reason why this kid could have been like a 2-sport athlete. Like I think he very well could have if he was allowed to. I think I could definitely see him playing baseball. But he has a great command of the offense. He loves playing. You can tell like he just has fun playing with Cliff Kingsbury. He's gonna be, after this week, he will be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football. Patty Mahomes on bye, and then I don't see Russell Wilson topping him, and he's got about a 5-point lead on him too. So I definitely agree. Josh Allen is great though. I I reluctantly like Josh Allen because I guess he could have been a Jet, same draft class as Sam Darnold as well. But I just feel like Josh Allen's a little more feast or famine. Like when he goes off, he really goes off. But then when he has his bad games, when he's fumbling, when he's not connecting with his receivers, like the week before against New England, he struggled, and they won that game. I think he had an interception. I think he had a fumble as well. But then this week against in a very good matchup against Seattle, absolutely torched them. 7 incompletions, over 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, ran the ball well as well. So you can like I said, when Josh Allen is on, he's up there. He's like a top 3, top 5 fantasy quarterback. But I think rest of the season, just based on schedule, I think you lean Kyler, and I do agree. Kyler could very well be the number 1 quarterback at the end of the season.
Bud chiming in saying, "Damn right, Josh Allen."
Oh, be quiet, Bud. Get out of here.
Yeah. Hey, if you're free, feel free to hop on in because we're having a fun time here. Just going way off script. But let's start talking running backs. We need to talk waiver wire. Bobby, what running back do you like this week?
Well, first off, if Mike Davis has somehow dropped or is still available in your league, definitely is the first priority there. Seeing as McCaffrey might be missing some time, and he's I think available in only 29% of leagues. But some people did drop him after CMC came back. I know John in one of your leagues someone did. But if Mike Davis isn't there, a guy I definitely look at is Duke Johnson. David Johnson leaving with the concussion. They really don't have a lot of depth at running backs, and the running backs in Houston were seeing almost 100% of the snaps when David was healthy, and then Duke last week when David went out. And he's been capable of producing in the past. He's a good pass catching back. He plays in a pretty decent offense, so he can definitely produce for you. Nothing super spectacular, but starting running back who's going to get a lot of carries and touches, especially with how decimated and depleted the running back position is. Sign me up for some Duke Johnson.
How many D Johnsons do we have in fantasy football?
Oh, way too many. It's stupid. And 2 of them on the same team. DU and a DA.
Yeah. Yep.
That is definitely way too many. All right, John, who do you got?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Bobby too. Like Mike Davis, I got was it yesterday, Bobby, that I got the update, or was that 2 days ago? Or it was yesterday. It was
yesterday morning. Yep.
Yesterday in the middle of the day, I got a text from an insider, and not one of my insiders, just a page I follow. And I texted Bobby. I was like, grab Mike Davis if you can right now, because it was before like the information was super public. And he was like, already got him. Thanks, man. He's like, when Johnny V tells me to pick someone up, I do it. So I was early on in the Mike Davis. No, but anyway, but a name that I'm looking at, and it's super deep. You're 100% gonna be able to get him too. He's only rostered in about 4% of leagues, and it's Cordarrelle Patterson, our good friend, our wide receiver / running back from Chicago. David Montgomery is still in concussion protocol as well, so there's no other experienced running back. Tariq Cohen on IR. Their next running back could be potentially Lamar Miller or Ryan Nall from Oregon State. He's a young kid. So Cordarrelle Patterson saw a lot of touches this week, and he gets a really nice matchup on Monday night against Minnesota. So I don't know ROS or anything, but I could definitely see this one panning out. Obviously, he's very active in the pass game. He's very fast. He's a hard in New England. He was always hard to deal with, like when he lined up in the backfield because he's so big. I could definitely. I mean, we're all not fans of Matt Nagy as it is, but maybe Matt Nagy can cook something up and do some work like Josh McDaniels used to do with Patterson.
Might get a return touchdown too. You never know.
Yeah, I never know. Like you said, he's so active with so many things just because he's kind of that jack of all trades, master of none. But he's definitely an interesting look. And like I said, you may not even have to waste a claim on him. You could probably just grab him like in the morning after all the claims go through.
Yeah, he's a running back and he could be plugged in as a receiver. And
Exactly.
Speaking of receivers, John, what receivers do you like in this week?
I think you guys all know. Like if you haven't already, this is week 3 of this. You got to pick up my boy Jacoby Myers, please. I hope someone gets him. I'm not gonna get him because I dropped him in a league because I had to for space reasons. But no, he's insane. Like he's seeing Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas like target shares. You got to pick him up. He's probably gonna be the number 1 wide receiver pickup after what he did. Granted, he did it against the Jets. Jets are one of the weaker secondaries. Not as bad as Seattle, but they're still weaker. But he's too good to let sit there. Someone's gonna pick him up. If you have high prio, you might as well be you. What do you think, Bobby? Who else you got?
Yeah, in my opinion, man, I mean, besides Myers, I mean, the receivers look kind of ugly. I know that teams maybe with short benches or whatever might have dropped Brandon Ayuk and or Debo Samuel, which are two guys that you also like, John. And they're coming back now. They were cleared. Well, Debo Samuel still has a hamstring, but Brandon Ayuk, somebody that could be useful fill in for the bye week. If Samuel misses, I mean they're playing at New Orleans, so they're gonna have to be throwing the ball, and so Ayuk could provide some value there. But other than that, I'm not really actually excited about a lot of the receivers listed besides mainly Myers, based on in 12-team leagues.
All right. What about tight ends, Bobby? Who you're liking at the tight end position this week?
Yeah, I've seen in a lot of my leagues Dallas Goedert's still available. It doesn't look like Zach Ertz is going to come back, and Goddard came back from injury previous week before their bye week, and he had a quiet game, but it was just his first game back from injury, and he was a big part of their offense even earlier in the season. Before he was a tight end one actually even before Ertz went down when they were both healthy. And the Eagles are getting healthier on offense as well. They have a nice schedule. So I've seen Goddard available in a lot of leagues. I would definitely scoop him up if you're going to need a tight end either for this week or just in general, John.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, if you can get him, definitely get him. It just really depends on your league, honestly. Jonnu Smith seems to be a popular one, but he's rostered in vast majority of leagues. Like, he's available in I think a couple of my leagues, and he's like an 86% roster. So definitely just do if you really need a tight. Like, I need a tight end this week, and of all people, like Jimmy Graham and Jonnu Smith are available in both of my leagues in that league. So I might be scooping him up. But if we're looking a little deeper, Jordan Reed is an interesting one in San Francisco. Even though Ross Dwelly saw more receptions. I mean, by two. Jordan Reed is definitely the better pass catcher, it seems. So that's an interesting one. Two other interesting ones. Trey Burton in Indianapolis is good, but again, I've been burned by Trey Burton way too much. And then Logan Logan Thomas in Washington. A lot of these guys, like at the end of the day, like if you really need a tight end, you're just kind of find a flyer who can get a touchdown. So look for someone with like a decent enough matchup. Like Logan Thomas has Detroit, so it's not an awful matchup, but it's not like one that I instantly sign up. Harrison Bryant, I think, is another one in Cleveland that you could definitely see. He's done really well since he's started. He's a couple touchdowns in that first game after Hooper and Njoku, or maybe Njoku's playing after Hooper got hurt. And then they have Houston, so that's a pretty fair matchup as well. FAU boy as well, so go Owls.
And going back
Yeah,
to
real
wide
quick-
receivers for a minute, yeah, Bud did just chime in. The good shout out for Curtis Samuel as a flyer, as a sleeper
Ooh,
league.
yeah.
Especially if CMC is going to miss some time. So, yeah, it's a good choice by you. But what were you saying, Bobby?
Oh yeah, and then tight end also. I know John and we have Hurst out this week, and if you're in a deeper league, a deep flyer you might want to consider taking if you're desperate is Jacob Hollister from Seattle, because he saw 7 targets last week. He went 5 for 60. He was producing at a steady pace last year when DeWill Disley went down, and it really what makes him appealing too is when you're deciding between him or some other desperation options is the offense that he plays in. It's just such a high volume passing attack with such a good quarterback, and with all the attention going to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I know Greg Olson's still there, but we're talking desperation here. Hollister has some sneaky upside appeal, in my opinion, as well.
All right, Bobby, the chatter chats in again. Where are you putting Goddard, and where's he when Ertz is back?
In terms of rankings,
Yeah, where would you put?
I'll put
Goddard?
him at 8 or 9. Rest of the season with or without Ertz. Again, he proved he can produce with Ertz in the lineup. He was a tight end one, and so I don't see why he can't. I'm gonna have him as a back end tight end one, top 10 option.
All right,
Yeah,
what do you
and
think?
no, I definitely agree. Philly, I've been a huge fan of Dallas Goddard ever since he came out. Loved him in college. Love the skill set that he brings in. And Philly's got a great schedule too, especially for
Yep.
those fantasy weeks, those playoff weeks, 14, 15, 16. You got New Orleans, Arizona, Dallas. Those are 3 defenses that primarily give up a lot of points, especially to tight ends. Arizona I mean, they didn't get gashed by Gesicki, but Gesicki had an okay game. As far as I can remember. Dallas, awful defense, but they did play well against Pittsburgh. Not gonna lie. But so like those are in your money making rounds, trying to win some bread. Though that's what you want to see. You want to see someone with a good matchup. So, I mean, if you can make a move for Goddard if he's available, but like you said, like even with Ertz, I don't want to say I think Philly's phasing out of Ertz, but with him being injured, him having such a down year, he's definitely fallen off that that top three, like like he was part of that holy trinity of tight ends, um, with Kittle, Ertz, and Kelsey, and now he's definitely fallen off that. And Goddard looks like he might be becoming one of the top five tight ends, like just like in football, not even just like not fantasy, like obviously not this year because he was hurt a little bit, and with just how the team has gone. But I could definitely see Goddard being one of the better tight ends in football. I mean, he already looks like he is.
No,
Well, while
agreed.
we're
And
talking
one,
about tight end trinities, let's talk about Mark Andrews for a second and whatever's going on with him. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
Oh, you go, Bobby.
yeah. So something I was actually trying to even consider. We talked about buying low on like Lamar Jackson or maybe the Ravens offense, but then, I read something. I mean, Lamar Jackson was dealing with he had a knee tweak, and it was even in the before the season started. I was reading, and then he popped up on the injury report a few weeks ago with a little knee issue, and he played through it. But something tells me he might be a little hurt, or maybe something more than meets the eye there, because he just quite hasn't looked like the Lamar of last year, and I think that might be a factor. And I say that because that affects the whole offense. And Mark Andrews was a big part of the offense from last year. Obviously, he was a stud, and so. Um, and then so Mark Andrews, he's been struggling now based on how tight end is. You still have to roll him out there, and he still is the eighth ranked tight end on the year right now. So you don't really have any other options most likely. So you're still gonna have to stick it out and ride with Mark Andrews. But there's definitely some concern with me moving forward for him, John.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like Mark Andrews was one of my deep sleepers last year. Bobby remembers he was in the league with me. I got him in like the 12th round. I loved him. He plays through anything. He plays through playing. Doesn't miss many games. He just it. I think that it's just with. I think just defenses are kind of keying into Lamar a little bit more. They're not letting him. They're not letting him beat him with his legs too much, and they're forcing him to throw a little bit more. And it looks like he's like you said, he's playing a little hurt, and a lot of the offensive production has suffered. Like Mark Andrews has had three really good games, but since his last good game was Week 5 against Cincinnati, Week 6, two receptions. Week 7 was a bye. Week 8, 3 receptions. Week 9, 3 receptions. And granted, he's playing good defenses in Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, but like that's like this was a guy who was regarded as as a top 5 tight end, borderline like top 1 or 2, like depending on who you talk to. Um, and like you're not expecting that production again. Tight end is so fickle, like that he's still like even with this poor production, he's had 3 good games and he's still the eighth best tight end. But you would at the beginning of the season, if you told me people like Hayden Hurst and Jimmy Graham would be higher than him or on like the same caliber as him, I would have told you you're nuts. Like that's insane. So it's just super weird to see how this offense that was running on all cylinders, one of the best in football last year, has almost come to a standstill.
All right, now Bobby, you answer me this: do you know who the number 3 ranked tight end in the fantasy football is right now?
Probably T.J. Hawkinson. By the way, you're asking this question.
Yes, sir. T.J. Hawkinson, Mr. Reliable. Like he's been sneakily like scoring touchdown week after week, going off for 4 wrecks, 60 yards and a touchdown pretty much week after week. So yeah, from where I thought was my weakest position at the start of the year, T.J. Hawkinson has just proved to be more and more reliable, and as other guys are just showing boom or bust throughout the whole year, this guy is just putting in consistent numbers week in and week out. So just had to give a quick shout out to my boy Hawk.
Yeah, no,
For sure.
he's definitely been crushing it. Like his worst games have been 9 points, and that's because he's found the end zone. He's like 2 receptions, but like regardless, like he's just getting the yards. He's seeing the targets. He's getting the receptions. Like the big thing that I always talk about is like what are they doing with the targets? Like yeah, sure, a guy can get targeted 15 times, but if he gets 3 receptions, then like you're not really doing anything with that. But like 8 targets, 5 receptions, 10 targets, 7 receptions, 6 targets, 5 receptions, and he's finding the end zone too, which is always huge. So you definitely want to see the guys who are making the best with what they're given.
Yeah, that's true. And I could talk tight ends all day, but let's move on to the quarterback position. This is a big one this week. A lot of people are down a quarterback. Patrick Mahomes on his bye week, among others. John, what quarterbacks are you liking to stream this week?
The big streamer this week is going to be Jared Goff, 100% home against Seattle. He likes playing at home, California kid, and he gets that 32nd rank pass defense. A lot of people are saying with the team that has Jamal Adams, Bobby Wagner, and that and just on that team, how you expect them to be so good defensively, and they're awful in pass coverage. It's like, first off, as someone who'd watched Jamal Adams for a couple of years, he doesn't pass coverage. He's there to make tackles and big hits. So that definitely makes sense with that. But regardless, like enough Jamal Adams shade for now. I love Jared Goff this week. Great matchup. He loves playing at home. He's a significantly better quarterback. I don't have the exact number for you, but it's night and day him playing at home than him playing on the road. So give me all of the Jared Goff shares. I'm not starting because I'm rolling with my boy Justin Herbert, but I love me some Jared Goff this week. Bobby, what do you think?
Yeah, that's the clear streamer too. I really love him as well. I know that in some leagues, maybe even shallower leagues, Joe Burrow is available. I mean, I don't know how, but he might still be available, and at least in a lot of my leagues, he is. And don't let the Pittsburgh passing or defense scare you in terms of their pass defense, which has still been somewhat solid, but not as dominant as you'd think it would be. And quarterbacks have still been able to produce. We've seen Carson Wentz produce, for as example. Garrett Gilbert didn't look as the Cowboys passing didn't look that bad last week. And Joe Burrow is just a stud, man. He's a stud quarterback. The Bengals are one of the highest passing teams in the NFL. They're going to be throwing a lot as well. They have a lot of weapons going on there. And Joe Burrow adds a nice little floor rushing. But if he's not available, another guy you might want to consider, and I don't really, I hate to kind of say it, but we're in this situation, but you might want to consider Baker Mayfield. They're going against Houston, which is a great matchup, and look, they're most likely getting Nick Chubb back, which is, I think, the key that makes their offense go. And when you have that guy in the lineup, it kind of makes everything else go smooth. They can run the ball like they want to, and then use the play action to get Baker easy looks, get him throws on the run like he's good at. And I think he's the key to their whole offense, and I think that enhances everybody on their offense. And the Texans, I think, are going to score points too. Cleveland's defense has not been good at all. It's been a revolving door, especially in the secondary. They might not have Myles Garrett again for this game, and yeah, so Houston could put up points. So I think you could make the case if you need to roll out Baker this week as a streamer.
All right, and what about defenses? Who are you liking there, Bobby?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers at home against the Jaguars. And I know Jake Luton for the Jags looked pretty good, but the Texans had quite a few guys out from defense between injury and actually some COVID stuff. And they're not a very good defense anyway, but I think the Packers at home, it's coming off a nice long week after their Thursday night victory. I just think it's a Packers domination here in all aspects of the game. Lambeau's a tough place to play, even without fans. And again, Luton is just only in his second game. So there's a lot to like about that defense. Fire him up for me, John.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Packers are definitely a good one. They were a solid option last week as well against San Francisco with how tore up they were. Jacksonville again, like going to Green Bay, it's probably gonna be a little chilly. Not sure how how Lutton's gonna fare, especially going to Lambeau. That is a mystical place to play. Outside of that though, defense is kind of a weird position. An interesting one I think could be the Dolphins. Dolphins defense is playing really well. They did give up a lot of points, but that was a high-powered offense, and they have my boy Justin Herbert coming in. But again, Herbert, coming on the road, making that West Coast trip to Miami, you do see a little bit of fall off from those West Coast teams when they do, and just likewise you do see sometimes with the East Coast teams. So you could see a little lower game from the Chargers. Another interesting one as well is the Eagles. They are against the Giants this week. Danny Dimes, I think this is the first time in like 10 games that he didn't have a turnover. So he's had a turnover in now, I think it's 20 of 22 games that he has played, at least one. So, I mean, with those odds, I'm going to assume he's going to have at least one on Sunday. So I'm not rolling him. But if I had to stream one, gun to my head, I do like the Eagles as well.
All right, Bud actually bringing up a good point. New Orleans Saints actually have a good schedule for the next 3 weeks, so the man's looking ahead.
True.
I like that call as well. The Saints, they have a really good defense on paper that never really came together this year until that game last week against the Bucs. And if that's any indication of how their defense is going to be playing moving forward, I'm all on board with that as well.
Yeah, and it's funny because their two best games this season are against the Bucs. Week 1, 17 points. Week 9, 16. Everything else has been 7 and under, including a cool -3 against Green Bay Week 3. And they get like Bud said, San Francisco all hurt. You don't know who's going to be quarterback. You don't know how any of those receivers or the running backs are going to be. Atlanta, like anemic at times, but still, they put up points. But it's a divisional game as well. And then Denver, you're not sure what you're going to get out of them. But they do play better at home, so that is an interesting one too. No, definitely a good one to look forward to.
All right, John. And now, before we move into the kickers, I want you to give your top 15 kickers for Week 10.
Doesn't matter. I went almost an entire week without having a kicker on my roster, and I won that week. So
Did you end up starting a kicker?
I did. So I almost didn't just because I wanted, just for the hilarity of it all, to just so I could say, see guys, this is how useless kickers are. I didn't even need one to win. And again, I should not have won this week, like at all. Like I was going up against DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Drew Brees, and I found a way to win the game. So shout outs to me, I guess.
Well,
Regardless,
congratulations.
thank you. No, I like week 10 was my throwaway week, like because I had so many people on bye, so many injuries, and I was like, all right, whatever. Like I'm not even gonna worry about it. I was like, wait a second, I'm actually in this game. All right. Once I saw like which kicker for the Jets was starting and if Crowder was starting, I made the swap and I grabbed Castillo who pushed me through in the first half.
All right, I got another question coming in, Bobby. I'm going to start this with you. It's trade talk. He says, I feel like I got a solid team, second place, 6-3, but not enough to win the championship. Is it worth trading depth away to turn a James Robinson into a Kamara or a Henry?
100%, man. Especially since you're 6-3, you can afford to maybe lose one more if it costs you some depth, man. You go for that. That's I love that easily. Yeah.
Yeah, those trades are tough to pull off. Trust me,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been trying for weeks and weeks now because
Yeah,
I'm in
for
a
real.
similar kind of situation. I don't have the same record, but my team's just has so much depth, and I've just been trying to move that depth to try to get one of those top guys, but it's hard. You're going to have to give up a lot, and some guys might not even be willing to part with their top guys, but I say if you could do it, go for it. But, John, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like anytime you can turn, like James Robinson has been great this year. He's been that little nugget that everyone found. But yeah, anytime you can turn someone into a Kamara, Henry, I don't know if I'd give away too much for, but he always finds a way just to eat up yards. But if you could turn James Robinson into Kamara, and you maybe throw in like a wide receiver 2, borderline wide receiver 1 to make it happen, depending on where your depth is, you have to do it. Like if you ever have a chance to get a Kamara type and you can just plug him and play, like if you lose one running back and you get Kamara, I definitely like it.
Henry has
Yeah,
such a favorable rest of the season, though. I don't know why you're down on him because I think that he's going to go off for the rest of this year. He's definitely one guy that I'm trying to target.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, outside of outside of Indy, and he's got Indy 2 the next 3 weeks, but his playoff schedule, like I said, is very very favorable. I think just that Green Bay game in their championship week, obviously like he's the number 3 running back in fantasy football. Like you're starting, he's set and forget mode. But like that week, like I feel like that would be more of a shootout, and I think Ryan Tannehill will be throwing a lot more than they will be running it. But again, like Henry always finds a way to get his carries regardless. Like his lowest amount of carries this year has been 18, and it's just his lack of. Like even this week, like he saw 21 carries for 68 yards. So like ton of carries, he just couldn't do anything. That Chicago front is good though. I don't know. It's just not an offense that outside of Tannehill, and even then, I'm probably gonna drop him this week. I'm just not too much of a fan of.
Yeah, so to follow up on that question.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now. I just saw it.
Yeah, so he's asking if Amari Cooper. I would not say that Amari Cooper and James Robinson would be enough to turn into a Kamara or a Henry. I guess it just depends on who you're asking. I don't think that'd be enough, but the rest of the team, you got Robinson, Mixon, Zeke, Gibson, Edmonds, or McKinnon.
Yeah, like looking at that RB, you might have to be a Mixon and a Cooper to make that work, because Zeke and Amari Cooper have very little value, especially with how awful that offense has been. Like I've been trying to flip Zeke for 3 weeks and no one's biting because everyone knows. So that you might have to bump that up to Mixon and Cooper. But if someone bites on Robinson and Cooper, 100% take it. But if you can make that Mixon and Cooper, you might have to make that Mixon and Cooper and then they bite. Might not be a bad option.
All right. So before we move into the rest of your questions, we are going to be buying high and selling low, or selling high and buying low. I think, man, it's late. John, who are you selling high on this week?
Oh, tough to say. I mean, it was such a great week. It's gonna sound really crazy, but I think you actually might be selling high a little bit on Dalvin Cook. I mean, it's just these two. He's been fantastic. He's been 2 insane games in a row. He's probably gonna keep it up, but there's a high chance that if you have him, I don't know. Depends on where you sit in the standings. If you're like high in the standings, you keep him. But if you're like kind of like on the outside looking in, you may want to flip him for like high end wide receiver 1 and another high end running back. I don't get me wrong, I love Dalvin Cook. I'm not saying he's trending downward, but you can't expect borderline 40 points a week out of it. So this might be your best chance to make like a really big blockbuster out of it. Again, not saying he's definitely on the downturn, but you can't be expecting 40 points a week. Bobby, anyone you have in particular?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there, John. I'm not necessarily selling this guy high. I'm just selling him in general. I'm selling Josh Jacobs all the way. I mentioned earlier I'm not really a Josh Jacobs fan anyway, and not so much about how like I love him as a player. I just don't like the Raiders in general. I don't like how they're using him. I mean, they're getting Devontae Booker involved and Jalen Richard. They're still not throwing him the ball, even though they said they were going to start throwing the ball in the off season more. Um, and you know, if you have some, and yet he's still, I believe. Let me just double check it here, but I think he is still a top 10 running back on the year. Yeah, he is the number 10 running back. And he doesn't really have much of a ceiling. He has maybe a decent floor with still amount of work he's getting, but he's not seeing receptions. I mean, you could if you want to flip him, maybe you have a Raiders homer in your league, or you pair Jacobs with like maybe a low end receiver 2 or high end receiver 3 for a higher end player. I would definitely go ahead and do it. I'm not really sold on Josh Jacobs from where you drafted him. I think he's a solid running back 2 rest of the way, but most likely he was drafted as an RB1 in the late first round. So I'm looking to get rid of Josh Jacobs here.
Yeah, and one other person that I think you might want to sell high on, and maybe this is specifically towards Bobby, is going for maybe like a Tyreek Hill coming off that big game. Maybe try to package him in for maybe like a Terry McLaurin, like who's definitely on the rise. And yeah, just a thought. Maybe Antonio Brown too. Just a thought.
Yeah,
and as far as buying low, I definitely say buy low on Antonio Brown. Tom Brady just had an off week, but the chemistry is obviously there, and they're going to work on that with time. So if you could make a trade for like Tyreek Hill for a Terry McLaurin and Antonio Brown, I would say pull the trigger on that immediately.
That sounds like personal bias to me, but I don't know.
Don't even hesitate.
I might be airing my personal problems over the air, but buy low. Who do you like, Bobby, this week?
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned him last week on the episode too. I'm buying low on Jarvis Landry. He saw 11 targets last week or the week before they went on bye week. Odell's done for the year. He's the number 1 guy. He came into the season not fully recovered from that hip, but he had a bye week and he hasn't made anything worse, and he's had a bye week to recover. And you know, towards the end of last year, he went on a little tear as well. He was really solid in PPR leagues, so definitely capable. He has chemistry with Landry, and again, they're getting Chubb back. They have a nice little schedule, and you know, I think that offense is going to start clicking a little bit, at least for fantasy. For Jarvis Landry, again, I'm not really into Cleveland. I'm with John. I'm not really into Cleveland that much, like from a real life perspective. But fantasy wise, you can get Jarvis Landry pretty dirt cheap. I'm trying to acquire him where I can for maybe a trade, flip him for a wide receiver 3 type or something like that. I think he can give you a wide receiver 2 numbers rest of the season, John.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm sticking with another wide receiver, and one that it pains me to say because he plays for another team now, and that's going to be Robbie Anderson. Coming off a pretty solid week this past week, 9 receptions for 63 yards. The big thing is, though, like he's the number 10 overall fantasy receiver, but he hasn't really found the end zone, and especially with McCaffrey potentially being out for a game or two. Though again, we're just really not sure. Like they haven't really released too much on him. He's seeing some targets. Yeah, he definitely has a good rapport with Teddy B. He hasn't found the end zone, so he's not like a real like sexy pick. He's not like a high name value or like high name recognition, but he's definitely an interesting one to target. I wouldn't like break the bank for him, but you might be able to get to steal him for something like relatively cheap. Like maybe like a wide receiver, like a wide receiver 2 in a package, or maybe an RB2 that you don't need because your depth based on your depth.
And speaking of dirt cheap, someone who I'd say you might want to go for if people are on borderline dropping is David Montgomery. And I know this may sound weird. He's just been struggling, but he is one of those guys who has a favorable rest of the season schedule. And if you could throw away some people and get him in return from a upset Montgomery owner, yeah, that might be something you want to go for.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and especially with him with this on the concussion protocol, like if he misses a game, or if he's gonna miss the game, you may be able to flip him and just throw him in that IR spot for a week, and then go on your way. And you got yourself a borderline wide or running back one right there.
All right. So before we go into the rest of your questions, every week we like to take a look at a certain division in the NFL and pick three names that are coming up a lot in talks, whether um, trade value, stardom, sit So this week we're going to take a look at the AFC South. And with the quarterback we're looking at this week is Ryan Tannehill. So I'm going to give you guys certain names, and I want you to tell me who you like better rest of season. So, John, we're going to start with you today. Who would you rather have the rest of the season? Ryan Tannehill or Joe Burrow?
Ooh, that's tough. Because we all love Joe Burrow. He's put up great numbers so far this season. He's been pretty good. He hasn't been the best rookie quarterback, but he's been very good, very serviceable. I think I go Tannehill, just because like he's been more consistent, better off, and I think his schedule is a slightly more favorable. And again, like I said, but I love what I've seen from the Rook. I like Tannehill though.
All right, Bobby, rest of season. Would you rather have Ryan Tannehill or Matt Ryan?
Yeah, I'm going to take Tannehill as well. I think they're both locked in top 12 fantasy quarterbacks, but Tannehill I think is a step above a tier above Ryan, a tier above Matt Ryan. A lot of it is because I love Tannehill's rushing ability. Um, he gives you that nice floor rushing wise. We talked about his nice schedule upcoming, and I just Tennessee's defense hasn't performed as well as they did last year, which means that more teams are going to score on them, which means that Tennessee might have to throw a little bit more. We've seen that this year in a lot of games where it's forced them to throw. And I like Tennessee as a whole. I loved them in the playoffs last year, the way they're coached and everything. And I really like what Tannehill brings to the table. But yeah, fantasy-wise, I'll take Ryan Tannehill over Matt Ryan rest of season.
All right, John, would you rather have Ryan Tannehill or Lamar Jackson?
Oof, I mean, yeah, they're neck and neck right now.
Try
With
not to look at the names and just look at the numbers.
Yeah, if I look just at the numbers, you gotta go Tannehill just because Tannehill's been so good, and Lamar Jackson has been so, I can't even say awful because he's had his moments, but he's just been so underwhelming. Um, so if you look at the schedule, look at the names, I think you still I still think you lean Tannehill, or I don't know. It's close. Like I look at the schedules and I for like at this point in the season, you're looking for like long term, like where are you going to go in your breadwinning weeks? And Lamar Jackson in those weeks 15 and 16, he gets Jacksonville and the Giants. Granted, Giants are a better defense than they get credit for, but I think I lean Lamar Jackson right now, but it's a lot closer than it probably should be, to be completely honest.
All right, so now we are moving over to the running back position, and we're going to look at the Indianapolis Colts and Jonathan Taylor. Bobby, for the rest of the year, who would you rather have, Jonathan Taylor or David Montgomery?
I'm going to go with Montgomery based off of volume. He is seeing usage like an RB1. Obviously, he's not performing like an RB1, but he is still a rock solid running back too, especially with how depleted running backs are, and he is seeing targets in the passing game as well. Um, and so I mean, I'm going to take. I mean, when it comes to volume, and speaking of volume, Jonathan Taylor hasn't seen more than 12 carries in the last 4 games they played. He started off pretty good last week, and then he had that devastating fumble that the Ravens took for a touchdown, and then we've seen a lot of Jordan Wilkins the last 2 games as well. It just might not be happening for Taylor this year. It really doesn't make sense because the Colts, have one of the best offensive lines in football, and Marlon Mack went down, and we saw. I mean, Taylor, I love Taylor coming out. I mean, I thought he was a great 3-down running back prospect, and he can do all the things. And you figure this would be a perfect situation, especially with Phillip Rivers, and they're not going to be throwing the ball a lot, and Rivers likes to check it down, and Taylor can do that too. But it just hasn't happened for him. And Montgomery's seeing more volume, so I'll take Montgomery here.
Yeah, one of our chatters brings up a good point talking about Montgomery and Zeke. They both are in that same spot. Lots of volume and no holes in the offensive line. Yeah, it's
Yup,
been
100%.
tough for them, but I feel that you could always get upside when you have a running back who's getting touches. Whether because you never know, he could go off 1 week, and just because they happen to keep feeding him, they have that potential to boom. And yeah, but moving on, John, who would you rather have the rest of the season, Jonathan Taylor or Chase Edmonds?
Oof. God, that's tough. I like yeah, I'm just gonna say Edmonds just because I like his I like the offense better. Even as the backup, as long as Kenny Drake's out, he's borderline. He's close to running back one territory. He fits the offense better than Kenyon Drake just because of his pass catching ability. I feel not to say Drake's bad in the passing game, but I think Edmonds is just better. Fits the offense a little better. So I think that I don't want to say Arizona will be moving away from Drake, but I feel like Edmonds he's definitely staked the claim, and he's earned his snaps, and he's definitely doing a lot with them. So I'm gonna lean. If you ask me this next year when Taylor's probably the starter, I'll say Taylor. But right now, I think I take Edmonds rest of the season.
All right, Bobby, for the rest of the year, who would you rather have, Jonathan Taylor or DeAndre Swift?
Oh man, I'm gonna say Swift because I just think he has more upside here, and I like how they're. I mean, I don't like how they're using him at all. I just think I don't know. Still don't understand why they keep having to involve Adrian Peterson in this offense. But Swift has shown flashes, and I think he has more upside, more explosiveness at this point than Taylor does. So I will take Swift here.
All right, now we move down to Jacksonville and DJ Chark, who kicked off the fantasy week with a monster touchdown. John, who would you rather have for the rest of the year, DJ Chark or Kenny Galladay?
Oof, that's a tough one. Galladay's been so good, and then he just sucks that he got hurt at the wrong time. Chark, even though Chark's been kind of like the thorn in the side for the last minute fantasy scramble because every time we say don't start Chark or don't worry about him, he just pops off. And like this week, we're like, stay away from this offense. Do not want anything with it. It goes bonkers. Um, and so it does have a tough schedule. But I think I'm gonna go Chark just because he seems to recover from his injury pretty quickly. He's been playing absolutely lights out. So I like DJ Chark this week or rest of the season probably.
All right, Bobby, DJ Chark or Mike Evans?
Oh man, that's brutal. I'm gonna take DJ Chark as well. I think as long as Luton's the starter, he's latched onto Chark, and for good reason. He's clearly their best wide receiver. He did see a lot of targets. He had that big play, but he also was seeing a lot of targets as well. So it wasn't just that big play. And I think Luton is going to be the starter rest of this year. Minshew's going to be out at least a while, and I think they're going to go to him and see what they have in him. So yeah, and their defense isn't very good. They're going to be throwing a lot. I'm going to take Chark over Evans, who there's just a lot of mouths to feed here. He seems like a touchdown or bust option, to be honest. And now with AB, it's really crowded over there in Tampa. And Godwin back healthy, and Gronkowski now, and I'm gonna take Chark rest of season.
All right, John, DJ Chark or Deontay Johnson?
Oh, I knew it.
Oh my God!
Have
I
fun
hate
with
you.
that one, John. Have fun.
See that I can't win with this one because I couldn't win last time we had this one because we were 100%, or I don't even know if I was 100% wrong. We all were wrong with this one. Yeah, I guess. Oh God, I hate you. I hate you, K-Mac. Like I don't know why you do this to me. Yeah, I'm going Chark again. Like they're both so similar. Chark's had a couple of bigger games than Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson has had quite a few duds. There, so that's why he is ranked higher. But I'll make it a clean sweep. I'll go with Chark. He's definitely been more consistent with the work that he's seen, and like Bobby said, like Lund's like, yo, you're my dude, catch every ball, and he's caught a lot of them. So let's see what Chark and Lutton can do.
All right, before we move on to your questions, I would like to issue a public apology on behalf of the entire Last Minute Fantasy Scramble show. Our theme of last week was risky business, roll the dice on Antonio Brown. We were all really high on him for his debut. Even some of us who were like, all right, maybe he might not do great, but roll the dice anyways. This is going to be, your chance to see what Antonio Brown could do. We apologize for that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all I'm
we
gonna say about that. And Bud apologizes also.
Yeah, Bud was the first one to say risky business, and then we all were like, you know what? I like that, Bud. Let's go, risky business.
That being
So-
said, Bobby, Tyler asks who wins this trade. Standard: Zeke for Antonio Gibson and J.K. Dobbins.
I'm still gonna go with Zeke here. J.D. McKissick is seeing pretty much all the passing down work in Washington, and so that's gonna cut into Gibson's upside. He's not seeing all the touches, especially with Alex Smith there. And the Cowboys are getting Andy Dalton back over the bye week, and I know that's nothing spectacular, but it might make things at least a little bit more respectable. And Zeke will get healthier over the bye week. So I'd still rather have Zeke in that case. As for Dobbins as well, I like his upside, but he's in a timeshare with Edwards, and now that Ingram could be coming back this week or the following week, then his value is going to take a hit as well. So I'll still take Zeke here.
John?
Yeah, I definitely agree as well. I think that even like Zeke, he may not be the third ranked running back that you probably took him at. He may not even be a running back one, but I think just the potential there. He's still a high end running back two at his worst. He played through injury this week against a tough defense. He gutted his way to those was it like 10 points I think he scored. It's been tough just because Dallas has been so bad. Maybe after this bye he'll get a little healthy. McCarthy will maybe figure something out. Should be getting Andy Dalton back as well, so I think that might help them a little bit. So I'm still riding with Zeke at this point.
All right, John. Damian asks, should he be having mixed thoughts about starting Lockett this week?
Oof, that's a tough one to say. I mean, because it just seems like whichever. I mean, he's probably not going to see Ramsey, which is good because I think Ramsey has locked him down for the most part when they have played. I could be wrong on that though, but I think Ramsey will be on DK if at all. So I wouldn't. Again, like I said, you cannot expect 53 points. You cannot expect 37 points from a receiver every week. So like you have to like taper your expectations down. But regardless, I think that in a safe enough in a safe enough environment, you can still start him. He's still startable. But I wouldn't, like I said, you cannot expect 53 points. So like that's just unrealistic.
Bobby?
Yeah, I still think you have to be confident with Lockett. I'm not too worried about him rolling him out this week. Like John mentioned, they might have Ramsey on DK, and that might open things up for Lockett. But he's still a big part of this offense. He's still seeing the targets, and you want to be tied to Russell Wilson in this passing offense, especially because of how bad their defense has been playing. So yeah, I mean, I'm really confident with Lockett. I'm not concerned or worried. And you just got to expect those boom and bust weeks because he will definitely win you a week, as we saw a few weeks back. Yeah.
All right, Bobby.
I'm still
Lockett
I'm
or
not too
Woods,
concerned.
rest of season.
Lockett.
All
That's
right.
the same thing I said.
You hear that? Lockett. All right, John, we got some tight end questions on a tight end Tuesday.
Oof.
Brendan
All right.
asks, Dallas Goedert or Hunter Henry?
Ooh, those are two that I like right now. Hunter Henry, obviously, I love that offense. Love my boy Justin Herbert. But I'm a big Dallas Goedert fan as well. So I think right now, are we talking rest of the season or are we talking just this week?
Give me
'Cause-
your answers for both.
Okay, so this week I'll take. This week I take Hunter Henry because I think that at Miami, they have a good front, but I think they're a little weaker at linebacker. So I think that Hunter Henry probably sees a little more action. Again, he does see his receptions, but he's definitely fallen into kind of like if he hits a touchdown, he's going to have a big game. Like he's just been very consistent this season. I just like that matchup better than again. You look at the Giants. The Giants are actually like a serviceable defense. They just lose a lot of close games. Like bad teams find ways to lose games. That's basically how the Giants have been. So I do like Hunter Henry this week specifically, and it's close. It comes down to just like how you figure with your matchups. But rest of the season, I probably lean Goddard, even with Ertz coming back. Like I said, I specifically like his playoff schedule. But again, both have good schedules. It just honestly comes down to preference. Hunter Henry is the bona fide tight end, good number one tight end option. While Goddard may have or steal some looks, but I do like Goddard's schedule slightly better than I like Hunter Henry's the rest of the season.
All right, Bobby. Ben asks Hooper, Goddard, or Reed for the rest of the year.
Hooper, Goddard, or Jordan Reed, you said?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, I talked about earlier. I'm going to take Goddard. Jordan Reed, I mean, thought he was going to maybe do something, but he didn't even play the majority of the snaps over Ross Dwelly, and that's the whole quarterback situation. There is a mess. So yeah, I'm gonna take Goddard. I love him rest of the season over those guys.
All right, John. Theo asks, has Tyler Boyd become a must-start receiver even against Pitt?
It honestly just depends on the rest of your team. He's definitely he's had his good weeks. Hasn't really had too many down weeks either. His least amount of receptions has been 4. Least amount of targets has been 5. And that was in week 1. In Joe Burrow's first game against the Chargers. He's been very consistent over the last couple weeks. Or before the bye, he was on an absolute tear, touchdown in 2 straight games. Just racking up the receptions. I don't know if he's set in forget mode yet, but he's definitely leaning that way. So I'd look at him this way. I'd start him this week.
All right, Bobby, just time for a few more questions. Frank asks, Allen Robinson or Michael Thomas this week?
Yeah, Michael Thomas easily. He's going to get back to that top 6, top 7 wide receiver status. He had a little bit of a quiet game last week, but they didn't really need him much. And the Bucs are a tougher defense, and they're playing against San Francisco, who have been pretty bad with wide receivers this year. And we just saw what DK Metcalf did to them the previous week, and then last week what Adams did to them. And Thomas is up there with the best of them. Even though A-Rob has a good matchup against Minnesota at home, he's a tier below Michael Thomas.
All right, John, last question. Greg asks, who wins this trade, Will Fuller for Josh Jacobs?
Oh, that's like Bobby always says, it just depends on roster construction as well. Like who needs
No,
not
we
every
need
trade
a
has
winner.
to have...
We need a loser. No nuance.
No nuances. All right, give me Will Fuller. I love Will Fuller. Like I said, I'm definitely getting away from Josh Jacobs. That offense has become more of a passing offense. Jacobs is good though. Don't get me wrong. But I definitely like Will Fuller a little bit more. He has that huge. Will Fuller doesn't only have like that big play potential. He's definitely proven his worth as like an actual good route runner and good pass catcher. So give me Will Fuller.
Bobby, the same question to you.
Yeah, just everything John said, and I talked about selling Josh Jacobs anyway at this point in the season. Give me Will Fuller. I like Houston's offense fantasy wise. They're going to be throwing a lot. Their defense is terrible, and Fuller's been really producing as long as he's been on the field. So I'll take Will Fuller there as well.
All right, so now that means it is time for our breakout players of the game for Thursday Night Football. To recap what happened last week, I thought I had it locked down. My pick of Gabriel Davis went off and had a great game. And then Monday Night Football happened. So, John, why don't you give us an explanation of what your guy did?
Yeah, so, Jacoby Myers, like I said, I've talked about him for a while. I've been telling you guys, look out for this kid. He's going to be good. Look out for this kid. There's no other receivers. He's going to be the only one. And he popped off for, what was it, 11 or 12 for 169? I don't know. I can't remember. I stopped counting because it was
12,
so much.
Yep, 12 for 169.
12 for 169. So, thank you. Shout outs to Jacoby Myers, making me look a little smart for once.
All right, so since you won last weekend, I will give you the first pick for this Thursday Night Football game. And to explain to everybody what this is, we take a look at ESPN's PPR projections, and we choose a player who we think is going to beat that projection by so much more. So, let's say if you're picking somebody who's projected to get 20 points and they score 25, then that's 5 points towards this score. Or if you pick somebody who has like 13 and they get 20, then that's 7 points. So I think that explains it enough. Who are you going with this week?
So I was torn. I was thinking about going tight end. I was thinking of Jonnu Smith. I was thinking about Trey Burton, but you know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna stick with pass catchers. I'm gonna do like K-Mac did last week. I'm going high. I'm high rolling this one. Give me AJ Brown. I just like I said, like you just, like start your studs, pick your studs, and he had a great game last week, 4 for 101. Indy is a good defense. Don't get me wrong. I've talked about it a lot. 10th best against pass catchers. But I'm feeling some AJ Brown this week. So let's go. Let's roll that. Give me a stud.
All right, Bobby, who you liking?
I'm gonna go in this with the same argument as John, and I'll take Corey Davis. He had a goose egg out of nowhere last week. I don't understand it. But before that goose egg, he was seeing a really nice volume in this offense, and he was being used really well. And people forget that he was a first round pick a few years ago. And again, I think the Colts are gonna really just look to shut down Derrick Henry. They're the second ranked run defense. And Tannehill's proven he's more than capable of lighting up a defense, and I don't think it's going to be any lighting up of a defense, but I'll go with Corey Davis here. He's projected for 10.1.
Yeah, I definitely feel that this could be a defensive battle, especially on Thursday Night Football, where players are just prone to just not have their best games. So that being said, I'm going with Rodrigo Blankenship.
Oh, that's
no, I'm
such
kidding.
a cop out.
I'm kidding. I'm not.
Right.
I am going to go with Ryan Tannehill, though.
Okay.
Not projected to get too many points going up against a tough defense, but I feel if anybody's going to be scoring, it's going to be him. I guess we will have to wait and see, though. But before we close the show, I took the time out of my busy schedule to tally up how many wins each of us have for all the times we've done this so far. This will be our 14th edition of Breakout Player of the Game /weekend. And to tally up the scores, Bud, out of the four of us, is in fourth place with 2 wins. Bobby is in third place with 3 wins. And John and I right now tied for 4 wins apiece, going for that tiebreaker. So we're still going for that for the rest of the season. That just shows you who you want to listen to and who you don't want to listen to. But that being said, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening in. I really appreciate it. Make sure to like, subscribe, rate us, review us, do all this kind of stuff. We are on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, Twitch, everything you could think of. Just search up Last Minute Fantasy Scramble, and more than likely, we'll be there. So for Bobby Digital Janis and John Viveros, I'm Kevin McCartney, and we will see you on Sunday.